This video will cover a few key differences between Hullabalook pages and traditional PLPs on the GAIA site to explain why the Hullabalook pages are currently converting at a much higher rate. The example that we'll use here is the Hullabalook Sofa Explorer against the traditional GAIA PLP for chairs. And so the first point of comparison is to do with how each page approaches colour. Rather than relying on tags associated with data, Hullabalook looks at images and then using our colour science algorithms, we extract the colour from the product image for a higher level of accuracy. So rather than labelling a product as simply green, we know the exact shade of colour for each one of your products as soon as we load that product image into the platform. And so you can see here we're searching for products across the catalogue using that high level of specificity. So having clicked on green, I can see the difference between a dark green, a bright green, a turquoise, and then start to hone in on the specific shade that I'm looking for. On the traditional GAIA pages, the colour tagging is done manually, so all of the shades of green are treated as one, and there's a random selection of these products on page load. Also, manual tagging is obviously subject to human error, so you can see here that while most of the products are green, we also have some categories of white products being lumped in with the green ones, and there are other pages on the GAIA site where a spelling mistake or casing inconsistency in the database has generated two separate categories for the same colour. And these are obviously errors that don't appear in the Hullabalook PLP equivalents. And what might not be obvious is that we're also ranking the variant swatches on each product tile from most similar in colour to least. So for every product on the grid, the next most relevant variant is represented by the swatch in position 1 on the list. And each swatch to the right is less relevant than the previous one, whereas here on the GAIA pages, there's no way to score all the variant options, and at the moment there isn't currently any variant grouping in effect. This is actually really important in converting, because if I see a product in a design that I really like in a colour that I actually don't, I'm left with two conclusions. Conclusion number one, this product doesn't exist in any other colour, or conclusion number two, it does probably exist in another colour, but I'm going to have to go and look for it myself, disrupting the customer journey and pulling me further away from the checkout page. Whereas if I'm immediately presented with an alternative colour that is to my liking, I'm one click away from accessing that preferred colour on the Hullabalook pages, and then the conversion is complete. Another important difference between the two pages is how easy it is for shoppers to filter the GAIA product. So here you can see the ranking philosophy on Hullabalook pages gets us to the most relevant products far quicker than it does on traditional PLPs. So obviously here I'm using size as an example. We've played with the height and width criteria, and we've re-ranked all of the GAIA products in the grid, so the most relevant ones appear at the top. And this way customers find what they want to buy much quicker, and the conversion rates go up, whereas this GAIA page is driven by filtering, so less products are visible, and there's an increased chance that something we might like to click on is actually being hidden from us. When we change our search preferences, the JavaScript powering the Hullabalook ranking algorithm uses the edge computing approach of running in the browser. So you can see the grid responding to every change that I'm making in real time with no loading spinners, and it gets us to the point at which we can click on a product tile instantly, whereas every time a shopper makes a change to their preferences on the GAIA page, the page will call back to a server and the grid update is delayed whilst this process completes. So every additional change the shopper makes to their preferences adds another chunk of time to their journey and introduces the risk that the shopper becomes more frustrated and reluctant to persevere with their journey. The ranking philosophy on the Hullabalook pages as well means that our grid is always populated with potential products for us to click on. We can't get to an empty grid, which increases the likelihood that we're going to click through from the grid, whereas the filtering philosophy on GAIA means that we're only ever a few clicks away from only being able to see one product or from a no results found message at some point in the journey. A word on filter mechanics. The UX on Hullabalook's pages are really sort of playful and intuitive, and they're easy to use, and if we want to, we can layer a number of filtering options on top of each other to get to our desired search result in as few clicks as possible, which again increases the likelihood that we'll find a product we like and convert from. Whereas the filters on the GAIA page are a little tricky to use, so when we drag the sliders, our selection isn't remembered after we make our click, and sometimes they'll break altogether. We're also unable to layer additional filter options on top of one another, making it less likely to find the products that we want to click on than we were if we were using the Hullabalook experience. So, for example, we can't filter by multiple categories, which excludes a lot of products from view on the traditional pages. And the final point I'd make is just around connectivity. So a lot of the GAIA and Hullabalook site traffic comes from mobile shoppers, and for them, their signal will drop in and out as they move around. And so it's critical that the experience delivered to these shoppers is fluid and is not dependent on their internet connection. Because we're serving them a static bundle of files, their experience will continue unaffected when their internet drops out. And so I've just turned off my Wi-Fi, and you can see that we're able to continue with the journey. Whereas on a Gaia page, now if I try and interact with certain elements on the page, such as the filters, the page will break and the session will bounce. And this can be really frustrating for shoppers who might think that the Gaia site is broken, or they might simply just be frustrated that they have to start their search again from scratch. So this distinction in smoothness and continuity along the customer journey is another reason why our pages are converting much better than the traditional ones currently.